First, I'd like to, on behalf of the Assessor Professional Development Committee, I'd like to welcome you this morning. And I'm Susan Moore, and I work here in the library, Thomas Nelson, and I am chair of the Assessor Professional Development Committee. And we thought we'd start by this morning by going around and asking everyone to tell us who you are and where you work. That way we get to know everyone here.
Can we start with me, please? Lily Rakucci, student activities.
If people could stand up or lean forward or something. Jean Gordick, student activities.
Maybe Simon can start trying See me? Joanne Taylor, the Bishop's office. Brenda Stansel, Records office.
Henrietta King, Records office.
Edie Gilbert, admissions. Ada Correa, admissions. Karen Barnett, admissions.
Linda Gregory, library. Rhonda Watson, library.
Diane Benson, library. And Sanderson, library.
Art Van Better Psychology.
Ella Belch, library.
Kathy Hoffmaster, math department.
And Sandy DeShio, math department also. Alex Schweitzer, learning resources.
Sandy Keller, computer center.
Sharon Edwards, counseling center. Pam Wood, dean of instruction, student development office. Smita Hines, institutional research. Kristen Fagan, dean of administrative services office. Carol Belcher, public relations.
Lillian Fobbs, financial aid.
Marlene Waters, audiovisual. See, I don't get me on it.
Thank you all. I have very little to say, but let me go ahead and say it, and hopefully then I can go ahead and introduce Nancy Bailey. And I present will be here and I'll introduce Nancy. But anyway, a few months ago in the library, we had a student who became very irate because he had library fines because he hadn't returned books, and there was also a block on his library card. And after he created a scene in the library, he then goes back to technical services and creates a scene in the back. And the next day, when the members of our staff were discussing the previous day's events, it was suggested that it would be a good idea if there was a workshop with role playing for all staff and faculty to learn how to handle difficult situations. So, particularly staff people that are on the front line with students every day. So that's why we're here today. And at this point, I'm kind of lost because I thought our presenter would be here. So hopefully she'll be here in just a few minutes. So you all want to have my coffee.
Thank you.
Anyway, we do have one counselor here, and the other one is in Radford. So, when we began planning this workshop, I called our counseling center here at Thomas Nelson, and they immediately called me back and said that they would love to help in planning this workshop. And two of Thomas Nelson's counselors, Nancy Bailey and Marilyn Starks, have worked with the Peninsula Behavioral Center to prepare this workshop for you today. I want to introduce you to Nancy. Nancy has been at Thomas Nelson since February of this year. In her role as counselor, she works with students with disabilities, and she works with students which are referred by faculty for inappropriate behavior. Nancy comes to Thomas Nelson from Erie Community College in New York State, where she worked as a counselor for students with disabilities for 15 years. Please welcome Nancy Bailey.
Hi. I'm not going to use the microphone because I just hate to hear my own voice. I'm glad that all of you came out here today. As Susan said, what my role will be, I guess as of now, but definitely more so in the future, will be to be working with students with disabilities. I'll be taking over for Tom Keller, who's going to be taking on a new role as the counseling center undergoes some restructuring. But I thought that it's great because turnout, all of you being interested, you have to deal with students who may display inappropriate behavior in the classroom or within their offices. Because if you guys can learn some techniques and feel comfortable with those students, you're going to make my job a lot easier. Hopefully I won't have so many referrals for those kinds of students. So I do appreciate you coming out today. I don't know where exactly I'm going to be located. My office will be moved, but once all that has been determined, I'll be sending out a letter via email most likely. But what I'd like to do now is introduce Cynthia Marshall. She's from the Peninsula Behavioral Center. She's going to be working with Ann Cosman, who will give the presentation. And Cynthia's going to tell you a little bit about Peninsula Behavior Center, what they do, the services they provide. Unfortunately, I have to go off to some other training. So you won't see me for the rest of the morning, but again, thank you for coming.
Thanks. Good morning. Good morning. Ann and I are never late. We thought it was 9, so I just want you to know. See, I'm early, right? By 9:00. My name is Cynthia Marshall, and I am the Professional Relations Coordinator at the hospital. Is anybody not familiar? Do you all know about Peninsula Behavioral Center? We were Peninsula Psychiatric Hospital. We've been Peninsula Hospital. Let's see, we've had like 10 names, I think, over the past few years. We're on Executive Drive. If you head to the mall, you've probably passed it a million times. That hospital's been there, geez, I think the new one was built in '81. In fact, we used to be the old Bayberry Hospital when it was on the Hampton University campus. I don't know if you all have been here for a while or ever heard of Bayberry, some of you have. I have been here on this college campus several times doing trainings over the years. We did some crisis intervention training a few years ago and have done several other things. So I really like to come out here. In fact, some of the trainings we've done have been in this room. But since Ann's not here, what I want to do is just briefly tell you about the hospital because you need to know who we are and how we got here. I do have a master's degree in counseling. By trade, I am a therapist and I've worked with chemical dependent people for about 25 years. Several years ago, I decided I was tired. I was just tired of taking it all in. So I decided to do some PR work for the hospital, and I do that on a part-time basis. But my phone still rings. People know I've been doing this for a long time, so they'll call. And my true love is working with alcoholics and addicts, especially women. It's just wonderful to see people actually get better. The hospital is a 125-bed psychiatric hospital. We were bought by Riverside Hospital a year and a half ago. We used to be part of HCA, which Hospital Corporation of America is the largest hospital corporation in the United States, but Riverside decided that they wanted to do some more psychiatric business in this area, so they bought us. We take care of adults, children, and adolescents. We take care of adults with psychiatric and substance abuse problems. We take care of patients who are very, very, very sick, have separate units. We do temporary detention orders. If somebody in a family needs to be committed, then we take care of them and we actually do the hearings. The judges come to our hospital. And many times we keep people or we send them to Eastern State or other places in the community where they need to get more help. We also take care of children and adolescents and with the psychiatric and substance abuse problems, and we call those acute programs. I don't know if any of y'all realize that years ago people would go to a psych hospital and maybe stay 30 days. Well, those days are long, long, long gone. Our average length of stay is about 5 days now. And I hate to say it, but it's because of insurance. So what we do is we get people in, we stabilize them, we get them on the medication they need, we get them hooked up with a physician, and then we work to put them in the appropriate place in the community to continue their care. We do now, one exciting thing about the hospital is we take care of adolescents and children in residential programs. These kids come to us through the Comprehensive Services Act and through FACT teams in all the communities, and they come to us and actually live with us for a while. What's the average length of residential? 5 months, see? So they do, they come and live with us for 5, that's the average length of time. They go to school with us, they live there, we take care of them, we try to help them and get them hooked up in the community. A lot of these kids don't have families. So it's our job to help find families for them and hopefully get them on their way so they'll be functioning people, in the community and have healthy, happy lives. And that's about us. So we do residential, long-term, and we do short-term stabilization. We take care of little ones all the way up to geriatrics. Any questions? Okay, Ann's going to actually do the training. Ann is an excellent speaker. You're very fortunate. Ann and I have worked together for a lot of years, and she's just fabulous. She is the Director of Social Work Services at our hospital, so she actually supervises all the clinicians. She actually also takes care of the recreational therapy and the art therapy in the hospital. Ann's a licensed clinical social worker, and she's in private practice. York County, you can't ever get in to see her. That's how popular she is. She's always Cynthia. But anyway, here's Ann, and Ann, I told her we're not late. We really are. And I said, it's good, I'm early.
We just saw a car that looked like yours, and I said, oh, here goes Cynthia.
This is Ann Cosby. You ready?
Okay, baby.
Okay. Let me take
Overhead set up here.
This is called managing aggression in students.
Anybody have any aggressive students? You get to talk about that.
I'm going to leave some packets up here also if anybody's interested. It's more information about the hospital. There's phone numbers, crisis numbers. This little ditty up here, if you're interested, has lots of 1-800 numbers for all different things. Grief, eating disorders, depression. So if you're interested, please help yourself and any of the information that's up here.
Good morning. All right. Sorry to have y'all sitting around waiting on us. Didn't know we were getting an early start this morning. Cynthia said way too many nice things about me, but my name is Ann Cosby, and I work at Peninsula Hospital. I've been there 12 years.
Excuse me. See, she still calls it Peninsula Hospital.
Always will.
I told her
When I asked
about
for
that.
Peninsula Hospital,
Yeah.
it always will be. And the kids still call it there, the kids who are now in their late 20s, who I worked with back when they were on the adolescent. What I share with people in this, I've done this training for lots of different faculties, for lots of different school systems, and what I share with people is what kids and young adults, in your case, have taught me. So I'm going to be their mouthpiece to teach you what seems to work for them. There's nothing magic about anything I'm going to share with you. I hope that something we talk about today you can tuck away in the toolbox and pull out when you need it. But there's not, the stuff I'm going to share with you doesn't work with everybody, doesn't work with every personality in every setting. But my goal in doing this type of training is that you leave here and you actually have what to say, what to do kind of skills. I have sat in many a workshop and just said, oh, that was really good information, but it's not stuff, how do I implement it? How do I put it into play? So you have an outline there in front of you. I didn't put down everything we're going to talk about, but I gave you just something to go by. I have the same information on the overhead, so hopefully if you're a note taker, you won't have to do that. You'll have some things to take with you. Generally, what I'm going to go over is just an overview. We'll talk about why, I'm going to say kids a lot, I'm talking about your students, why kids get aggressive. We're going to look at levels of aggression, different levels, when you should get worried and when you ignore it. We'll talk about the levels of aggression. We'll move into, for the most part of our time together, talking about interventions. Again, the tools that I mentioned. We're going to talk about some general skills, some general things that you can do in preparation for if there should be an incident later, what kind of general skills you can use. How to get a check on your own thinking to not make a situation worse. De-escalation skills we'll spend a lot of time on. What do you say? What do you do? How do you walk? How do you talk? Things to bring a situation down. We'll go into, again, looking back at the levels of aggression, what interventions go with each level. There's some things you'll do with somebody who's at this level of aggression that you wouldn't do with somebody at this level, and vice versa. Because of the age group that y'all typically work with, we're going to talk about power struggles, because those are the settings, in my opinion, that lead to the most aggressive types of behavior, is when we get in that aggressive power struggle kind of situation. And then Cynthia and I are going to do some role plays and scenarios if you're up for it, using some of the situations you've dealt with, some of the students you've worked with, see if we can't apply what we're going to learn to specific situations at the college. And then we'll have time for question and answers. I think Cynthia's probably covered a lot of the resources at the hospital already. Okay, so you have that in front of you, and we're going to start with some of your students. Do y'all all work in the support staff? Is that my understanding? Your staff for the hospital? No, okay. I mean for the college. Okay, how many faculty we got? Classroom faculty, teaching, evening, day? Both, okay. How about, you gotta help me, how about administrative assistants? Okay, and libraries had an incident that started this whole thing, right? Kind of the interest in getting some information.
Student services.
Student services, you do registrations, financial aid, counseling. How many of you in student services? Okay. Great job. And how many from the library? Okay. Who am I missing?
Support officers that just run into students, like I'm in from 3 and you know, and talk to students all the time, giving directions and angry, you know, when they don't have the information. So I just got one yesterday.
Oh, good. So hold on to that thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's general student services.
And as a matter of fact, one of the situations that tend to trigger frustration is students who get sent from office to office to office, and regardless of where they end up, they're bad. They end up
Great. So you guys deal with them. We pass them around, right? Go to the next one. We deal with the same kind of situation, obviously being a psychiatric facility. We have a lot of angry patients, a lot of angry family members, and frustrated folks who aren't thinking clearly. And so I think the settings, as far as the skills, we'll be able to use some that are common. Okay, so everybody deals with students. What are the age range of your students?
The average age is
70.
Actually, yeah, the average age is 27 plus, isn't it, Sunita?
Well, we just did something, we just ran a query for Sally Marshall. So the youngest student was 14 and the oldest was 89. So we've got
Average age is late 20s.
Late 20s, okay. Busima, what's the most difficult age to deal with? Young?
18 to 30.
45, 55.
All of
Has their own.
All of them.
And I think that's probably what would be my answer. There are angry people in every age group. Right? There are people who you can't satisfy no matter what you do, right? In every age group.
The angriest seem to be the early 20s, though, parts of the library, because they know they're right.
That can cause a problem. Okay. Well, one of the things that you have in your setting is that people are coming here a lot of times new. This is a new setting. So developmentally, what happens to us when we enter a new situation is two things. We want to fit in, and we want to demonstrate confidence. So when I'm coming in a new setting, I want to find out how to fit in. And if I'm hooked up with a group of folks who are angry and hostile, I'm going to do what I do to fit into this new setting. And I also have to demonstrate confidence. I have to figure out a way to look good. Okay? So anytime any of us go into a new setting, that's what we're challenged with. And you are a new setting for many of your students, so you're going to see some of that. What happens is there develops some competition among who looks the best, who fits in the best. There's some of that kind of thing. We develop a lot more disrespect for authority because I'm grown. You know, I don't have to, I'm not subservient anymore. I've moved into an adulthood role. Even if you're talking about people who are coming back, they've lived life, you know. Who are you to tell them what to do and what they can and can't do? So there are a lot of challenges of folks coming into a new setting, a new college setting. Okay, so that's what we're just to kind of set the stage of what we're dealing with. Adults have an ability to reason plus an ability to express emotion. That combination can fuel arguments because I can reason. It's not like a child I throw a temper tantrum. I can reason, and then I can be emotional about stuff, and you combine the two, and you can have a good old argument. And adults also know that whoever makes the rules can change the rules. so they know their rights. Adults know that. You made the rules, you can change them. So they know where to push and how to try to get their way, because they've developed that advanced reasoning that we don't have to do with a lot of little kids. You know, they're in a different stage of life. Why do you think people get angry? What's your experience? Frustration.
When they don't get their way.
They don't get their way.
They don't understand.
When they don't understand. What else? Think about when you get angry. What makes you angry? When you don't feel listened to, right?
When you're denying them something they want, like their transcript or their class or.
Yeah, you're saying no to their request. Sometimes because they're unhappy. Absolutely right. Any other ideas? Why you get You are dealing with people who have lives outside of you. So lots and lots of times people are dealing with abuse issues, substance abuse, incest, dysfunctional families, all kinds of things that come with that. We don't leave all that at the door when we leave our homes in the morning. So, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of folks who come with baggage elsewhere. And that's important to keep it in mind. What else? Anything else? Why people get angry? Why y'all get angry?
Just a general feeling of insecurity and fear.
Insecurity and fear. Yeah, I don't know what to expect. When we met to plan this conference, one of the things we talked about too was that you have some students who have some real mental health problems. Just like every school system, just like every college, every university, there's people with real mental health issues, whether it's schizophrenia or psychosis or major depression or conduct disorders or oppositional defiant disorder. That translates into every setting. So you have those kind of issues too. Some of the things that kids tell me that makes them angry. Fear, misperception. You didn't see things the way I saw them. Threat to my self-esteem. You were making me look bad. You were embarrassing me. Significant change. Substance abuse. Any of you had a drunk or high student come in and cause a problem? Okay, a couple of you. Ongoing conflict with another. They may have a conflict with another student or another faculty member that's translated to you. Sometimes they've been kicked out of a class or kicked out of a service area, and that just goes with them. So they bounce around to the next place where they are. Feeling treated unfairly. It's a big one y'all mentioned. Mental health we mentioned. Learned behavior. A lot of times we learn to get along in the world by anger, right? We intimidate and get our way. And that may work real well with mom or dad or the community. So I'm going to use it with you too, because I know how to intimidate you to get your way. You have your second handout in your packet is the 5 levels of aggression. I'm going to go over them real briefly just to define them. I want you to think of people you know or students who you have seen demonstrate each level of aggression. Okay? And then we're going to come back to this towards the end of our time together and talk about what to do. But just want to briefly define them. The first one is the whiner and the complainer. Can y'all think of a whiner, complainer? Maybe a coworker. When asked to do something, they whine, they complain, they want you to back down. I don't want to do that. You know somebody? Got somebody in mind? Okay. Often we back down to the whiner and the complainer because they're so annoying. So get your person in mind for the whiner and complainer. Level 2, a little more significant, is stubborn refusal. They refuse to follow your directions. You tell them to do something, and they make excuses. I'm too busy, I'll do it later, I can't, I won't. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do what you asked me to do. People who have stubborn refusal often will globalize statements. We call them globally negative thinking. It's when you say, you always do that to me, you never listen to me, nobody cares about me here. You know those kind of global words that's stubborn refusal. People do that. People are in that kind of mindset. You never help me. I come here every day. You never do anything to help me. You're always on my back. Listen, you got somebody? Verbal abuse, okay? We're a little more aggressive and angry. The verbal abuser is the person who swears, who calls names, who tries to intimidate, who may appear that they're starting to get out of control. They're getting worked up. So we got the verbal abuser. Got somebody in mind who's you've witnessed treats you that way? Or okay. Move up a level, threats of violence. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hit you. Saying something or doing something to intimidate you, to get you to back down. Threat of violence. It's not a physical act of threat. And then lastly, the act of violence. Those are the folks who actually hit, punch a wall, kick over a trash can. Doesn't have to be something that breaks a bone, but something that I would kick over that chair. That's a physical act of violence, and that's the most significant level of aggression we're going to talk about. And again, we're going to go back to that with different areas to what you can do. Okay? Any questions about the levels or where we are? You got your people in your mind? Yes.
Of the body, about the voice actually is there is another violence, physically.
Excellent question. Can the actual physical stance or physical approach, could that actually be a threat of violence if there's no swearing or name calling? Absolutely. Somebody leaning over a table at you, you know what I'm saying? You need to just back off. That's a threat of violence, although I'm not raising my voice, I'm not swearing, I'm not saying I'm going to hit you. Right. Your body stance, absolutely. Good question. Okay, anything else? We're going to move on to interventions. We'll spend the rest of our time on what to do. Again, I'm going to share with you what kids have taught me, what people have taught me about aggression. We're going to start with general skills, and that's on, again, on your handout. We're going to go into a lot more detail, but just a listing of those on there. I am a firm believer that the better relationship you have with people, the better you're going to be able to intervene. I believe it with all my being. I've seen it work 10,000 times in my daily work. When you have a relationship with someone, you can communicate to them even when they are at any one of those levels of aggression better than anybody else on the planet. The story I give is a young man named Terry who was with us in the hospital back in the old days when people could stay a long time. He was with us a couple years. And he came to us when he was 14, and he'd been in an institution since he was 4. Psych hospitals. He was an animal. He was an animal. He bit, he spit, he fought. He was huge. It would take 10 full-grown men to hold him. He was just completely out of control. And I was his therapist. And we worked together every day for 2 years. And he was a pretty low-functioning kid, but really a neat kid. We're still in contact today. He's 25 and going to the job market. So, and had been out of the hospital successfully for 6 years. So those kind of people that you invest that time and energy in, there was an incident. He moved out of our hospital and started just coming to school with us. And there was an incident when he would go get aggressive, he would hurt people. And there was an incident in the classroom and they called for help. And his doctor was female and I was female. And so a bunch of us responded. They called a code to the school area because he was getting like he gets when we're going to have a problem. And only women came. There was like 6 of us. And I looked at him and I said, you know, we're going to put our hands on you and we're going to take you to the back where you're going to be safe. But I'm going to get hurt. And I just want you to know that. But I'm going to do what I need to do to help you be safe. And he got up and walked. First time he had ever done that. And the only reason he did that is what? The relationship, right? And you can do that with anybody. He's such an extreme case because he was so limited psychiatrically. But you can do that with anybody. If you take the time to develop good, positive, therapeutic relationships with your students, with the people you come in contact with, and just positive skills in interacting, people will respect you. Even if it's not somebody you're going to see more than once or twice, if your presentation is one of kindness helpfulness, openness, it makes a difference. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of those general skills because I think if we implement those in our work with students, it will come back tenfold in helping you if there is an incident with someone. The first area I've listed as, I think it's on your last sheet that you have, is joining. We'll talk a little bit about joining. Joining just means connecting with folks. And I'm going to teach you a body language that I use every day in working with people that you can use as well, if you choose to. Your style of interacting. And I need a couple of people to volunteer. It's not bad. It's volunteers. Okay. See what did What's your name? Joanne. Okay, Joanne needs some help. There you go. Your name? Sandy. All right, we're going to have Joanne be the kid. The student. Oh, okay. Sure. that would be bad. And Sandy is going to sit here. Sandy's going to be the professional, whatever. She can be in any profession. And you guys are talking about registration. You're talking about a class. You're talking about checking on a book. You're talking about anything that has to do with your job. But let's say the person starts getting upset, starts tearing up, starts whatever. The body posture. I don't have a board here, but I'm going to. The body posture I'm going to tell you, that's right, I'll just tell you, it's called SOLER, S-O-L-E-R, and it's a body posture, that presentation that presents to the person you're working with, I'm caring, I'm with you, I'm here to help you, okay? So we're going to have Joanne's coming in for whatever, Sandy's going to help. The S is an acronym that stands for squarely. So Sandy, I'm going to ask you to face Joanne squarely, which you already are. Give me not squarely. Face her in a way that's not squarely faced. Turn around. Okay? Squarely is your squared up facing the person. If you're sitting at your desk or sitting somewhere and you're turning to help someone this way, you're not attending to them. Your body posture communicates, I'm busy with something else, really not important. So you want to turn around when they come in and face them squarely, okay? The O stands for open. Oh, thank you, it's magic. The O stands for open. Open body posture, you've got it right now, Sandy. Give me closed. Okay, give me real closed. Okay, she can't cross legs, but you know what I'm saying, cross legs. Cross legs. Closed body posture. How does that feel different? Feels like it doesn't, you don't care. And you know we do that a lot of times when we're nervous, don't we? I do. Or cold. Cold or nervous. But if we recognize that and somebody comes in and we're trying to help, we turn around squarely and open our body posture. You're saying, I'm here to help you and I'm here to work with you. Okay? Got a question? No? Okay. Looked like you were. Question on the tip. The L stands for leaning forward. Okay, so Sandy's leaning forward. Excellent. What's the opposite of leaning forward? Okay. Now, is there a gentleman? Do a leaning back for us. Because guys do this much better than women. Okay? Chair. And do the whole thing. You know, you do the whole thing. Don't leave them on the bed. Chief, do it for us. Do the leaning back thing. There it is! Y'all seen that before? I'm picking on the men in the room because guys do it more often as part of a body posture. What's the difference? How does that feel different if you were Joanne? Intimidating. Leaning backwards, and folks who need to do this can do it strategically too. Leaning backwards is a power posture. It says, I'm in charge, this is my show, and you are in my space. you're in my house. You know, that kind of power, which is good in some cases. But if you're working with a student and trying to be helpful, you don't want to do that. You want to lean forward. We joke a lot of times in the hospital because we all have grooves in our public therapists have grooves in their knees because that's how we sit all day. You know, you're leaning forward, working with folks. So good, another piece of the puzzle. The E stands for, you know this one. You know the E. Eye contact, good. You look at them, you know, you don't stare at them, you know, but you're not looking at the clock or looking at the door. Or it's just maintaining positive eye contact. And the last one, the R, is for relaxed. Situations, particularly where there's a problem, we may get ourselves a little tight. And what are some things you might do, Sandy, if you were nervous in an interaction with somebody? Scratching, yeah, exactly. Scratching, moving, tapping. What else? What else does some of y'all do when you're nervous? Yeah. Yeah, pencil tapping. Anybody a hand wringer? There's all kinds of body things that we do when we're nervous, so we have to kind of check in to make sure we're not projecting that because you want to be relaxed. Twiddling your thumbs. Yeah, that conveys what? You are boring me to tears. All right, Sandy, give me the whole thing. Open, squarely open, leaning forward, eye contact, and relaxed. That's a helpful body posture. Give me the opposite. Stand up. Eye contact. And nervous. Okay. All of those are things that will impede your work with anybody, whether you're sitting in a meeting with Dean Davis or whether you're talking with a student or whether you're dealing with a problem. Okay, thank you. That wasn't too bad, was it? So that's one little joining, little secrets I like to share with folks because it really does work. It sounds kind of hokey. It really works. Another one is using their name. People's name is their identity. It is very powerful to say somebody's name. John, come on in and have a seat. Mr. Smith, how can I help you? If you call somebody by name, it connects you with that person. It's a very trivial thing. It makes a difference. It's who they are. It's their identity. It's respect. Another very powerful tool is using the words uh-huh. Everybody know those? There you go. Okay. If you do that and somebody's talking, what are you communicating? I'm listening. What else?
Or you're not listening, or it depends.
Well, it depends if you're one of those uh-huhs after everything they say, right? If you use it appropriately. You convey I'm listening.
That you're interested.
I'm interested. What else?
Do you care?
I'm understanding. Tell me more. Right? It says keep going. I'm with you. It's a very powerful thing, particularly if you're dealing with somebody who's upset or somebody who's got a problem. Just say, and hopefully they're going to continue. But you do want to be careful not to overuse and put people off.
I use I see because I find turns people off. So I see.
Good.
It's
Excellent.
not my head. And that seems to get me a lot further than the
Excellent. I see. So you've developed a kind of an offshoot of that works for you. Excellent. Not some people just nod their head. Any of those skills tell people to continue and they help you connect with folks. Okay? So just some general normal joining skills. For nurturance, you guys like to touch students? No. No touch. So skip right over nurturance. We hug, but we're also selective. And we use touch sometimes too. We'll show some, we'll have to get Dean Davis's opinion. We use touch sometimes to help people pay attention. I'll show you those skills in a little bit. The last general skill is just to increase people's self-esteem. Remember we talked about sometimes people get angry because they don't feel listened to, or they feel like their self-esteem is threatened, or you're making them look bad or stupid. So if you have a general skill, a general part of your demeanor is to help increase people's self-esteem, help them feel good about themselves, then again, that's going to be an ace in your pocket if there's ever a problem with that person. Okay, so some ideas to increase self-esteem. One is to give praise. Praise is a wonderful thing, and in our society, we are very good at giving people praise for doing things. You did well on that assignment. You did a good job cleaning up after yourself. Thanks for grading my papers. Whatever. We give people praise for doing things. You filled this form out well, whatever it is. But we are very neglectful sometimes in praising people for being. I like you. I'm glad you came in today. Thanks for stopping by. Boy, you have a nice smile. You know what I'm saying? They're not connected to doing anything. Therefore, people who don't feel good about themselves and are lacking still get praise for who they are. This works real good if any of your parents, too. We don't do that very well as parents. So finding some things that aren't tied up to an accomplishment and putting them out there. Giving real responsibilities. People need to be needed. Giving jobs to folks. I really need you today. Thank goodness you're here. When I first started my career many moons ago, I was 21 and I was in a middle school. And I wasn't a whole lot older than the kids there. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. And I was just put in. I had 7 classes back to back. Teach mental health. Teach kids how to cope in rural eastern North Carolina. Oh my gosh. And I just did what I knew to do, to create an environment where kids felt heard and important. And over the period, I was there 6 years, and over the period I was there, by the 3rd year, there was this little cluster of kids who would gravitate to my room. They were all the kids who were 16, 15 and 16 in the 8th grade. They took roll for me, they took out my trash, they washed my blackboards, they decorated the bulletin boards. These were the throwaway kids, that were failing out of school. And it was such a neat phenomenon because I just started. When I came in, I was scared to death. And I asked the most big, mature-looking kid, mean-looking kid, would you take roll for me? I've got to go down to the office. And all the other kids are like, what'd she do? Oh, look at him. But those were the kids that started really blossoming because they were needed, they were wanted, they were important. And they were the most responsible kids ever. That didn't do a whole lot in their other classes, but they were very responsible kids for me. And they always did what I asked them to do. Again, because I gave them, they were important in my classroom. They were needed in my classroom. So just any way that you can find to help people feel needed. Keeping your promises, real important. There's nothing that I think upsets me as much as somebody doesn't keep a promise. I'm going to do this, and they don't. And that's like a globally frustrating experience. So if you say you're going to do something for somebody, if at all possible, don't say it unless you know you can do it. Because then you set up an aggressive incident when you don't do what you say you're going to do. And it damages that relationship. Do a lot of you have ongoing relationships with students? Okay, I know that the faculty does. If you notice yourself getting in a negative pattern with somebody, and we've all experienced this, you've got to break it. And the only way I know to do that is to get in some of those positive statements prior to the student being able to do anything negative. If you wait till they're in your classroom or you wait till they're in the library, then it may be too late because they may already do something that's stop that, you can't do that here, you need to not do that. It already sets up the negative feel. So if you can grab them before they do something and say, good, glad to see you today, or glad you could be with us today, or how are you doing today? Anything positive to kind of break the pattern, because we all do that. We get in these negative patterns with certain students. They just rub us the wrong way, right? I mean, there's certain people that do that. Any questions about general skills? Those are just some little hints that hopefully will work in relationship building with your students.
Question about using first names, last names in the college setting. Do you have any insights about whether students of that age prefer to be addressed familiarly, or do they prefer a little distance, a little...
I would look to y'all to probably be the experts, because I like to be called by my first name. But if anybody calls me by my last name, if anybody says Ms. Cosman, I will say their last name, Ms. Schweitzer. Yes, Ms. Schweitzer, that was Ms. Cosman. So I would return if somebody used my last name. What do y'all think? Do students call you by their first names? By your first names? Sometimes. Do y'all have preferences? Do some of you prefer to be last name, some first name? Do you like last name? Any of you like to be called by your first name? I would go by personal preference. If you ever question it, if you ever wonder, ask. What would you prefer to call you? And a good way to do that, if you have a relationship with a group of students, whether it's in the library or in the classroom, you can say, you know, I prefer to be called this. Would y'all like me to call you by your first names or your last names? That's incredibly respectful, you know? It just puts it out there that I care about what you'd like to be called. And you can do that on a one-to-one basis, too. Glad to meet you. You came in to sign up for these courses. I'm so-and-so, or I'm Ann. What would you prefer that I call you? Excellent question. Because just by addressing that issue, you've been respectful. But I don't know the feel for, in general, whether people would like that. I'm going to talk a little bit about adjusting your mindset. In therapy, we call it reframing. Some of my staff call it blowing smoke. I don't care what you call it. Adjusting your mindset is setting the stage in your own head to be helpful. An example would be if somebody walks in and they're a problem. If we label them a problem, how are we going to interact with them? Not well. We're already set the stage, right? Oh God, here they come. Oh, and I'm going to have to deal with this today. We do that, don't we? That self-talk. And the example I use in training is this young man I worked at the mental health center in North Carolina for a long time too. And this young man, he was 8 years old, and I came to work one day and he was sleeping on my staircase at the mental health center. His mother had locked him out of the house. And she was a horrible woman. She was horrible. I hated her. No, I didn't say that word like that. I really despised this woman. She mistreated this kid she just treated him horribly. And the day that I came to work and he spent the night on the stairwell was it. I was done. And I was very young, and I was a social service, child protective service worker that was working with me. And she and I were going to meet with this mother together. And I really didn't think I could do it. I don't think I can be professional. And she said, Ann, let this woman teach you. This is a developmental opportunity. Let this woman teach you and help you sharpen your skills. You're going to deal with these people the rest of your professional career. Yeah, it was blowing smoke, but it put it in perspective for me. Because I was able to go in and meet with this horrible person and in my mind say, okay, I'm going to have to deal with this in order to help kids. This is the path I've chosen. This lady's going to help me improve my skills. So the more you can do that kind of in your head, have y'all heard about the Chinese symbol for crisis? Danger and opportunity? They don't have a symbol for crisis. They have two symbols put together, danger and opportunity. So a crisis, if we can look at a crisis situation or a difficult situation as, yeah, there's danger, yeah, there's a problem, but there's also an opportunity that I can do something different or I can teach the person to do something different. In therapy, we call it self-talk, and we all do it every day. We have this ongoing dialogue with ourselves. It's normal, trust me. As long as you don't answer yourself, you're okay. But we do the talking in our heads all day long. Very normal part of life. And if you just check yours every now and then and make sure it's not filled with a lot of setups for you to approach someone in an angry way or in an unhelpful way, it's half the battle. Okay, so the adjusting your mindset. With regard to before we leave adjusting your mindset, one of the things I teach parents a lot, and professionals, we're all guilty of it too, is playing tag. TAG stands for threats, anger, and guilt. If a student, coworker, whoever, uses one of those things, they're trying to get you to change the rules. Okay? If you respond with threats, anger, or guilt, or in a hostile way, you are playing the game, and that's very destructive. Give me an example of a threat that you may have heard. Coworker or student. What do they say? I'll just quit school. Just quit school. I don't care. I'll go to another school. I'll turn you in. I'll get you fired. I'll sue you. I get that a lot every day. I've contacted my attorney and I'm going to sue you. That's good, that's good. What about anger?
I had one recently where a student who was also a businessman said he was never going to send any of his employees to Thomas Nelson.
I will never send any of my employees here. That's excellent example. Those are things that people use to get you to back down, change the rules, get their way. And if they work, it's really not a good thing. What's an angry thing that you've heard from a student or a... I'm sick of Thomas Nelson and I'm not coming back.
You're not a real library.
You're not a real library. No. We push our buttons, don't they? I hate you. I hate this school. I hate this class. This class stinks. Whatever. A lot of angry things. What about guilt?
I need this class to graduate. This is my last semester, and I'll have to pass this class.
I need this.
You're the only class that I'm not getting an A in.
Oh, what a good one. You're the only class I'm not getting an A in. What a guilt thing. I'm the classic as a therapist. You only do this for You're only doing this. You don't care about me.
I pay your salary.
I pay your salary. That's a good one. That's a good one. They're not, yeah, not enough for the raise. So threats, anger, and guilt. Be on that little radar. Have your radar up. Somebody uses those things with you. They're trying to get you to change the rules. Don't play. And you don't want to respond with threats, anger, or guilt. It's kind of like, to use a metaphor, people pushing your buttons. You've all heard of that? That's what they're doing, and you just got to cover them. Don't let that work for you, because that establishes a pattern. Then people just start treating you that way. It's true for kids too, by the way, for parents again. You don't want to play that game with children. Okay, let's move on to verbal de-escalation. And y'all need a break? Are you okay? You may need coffee or good rest. You all right? You're not saying. Okay, good. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about verbal de-escalation because that is the most powerful. You know, when we listed our levels of aggression, we teach at Peninsula, all of our staff are very highly trained in managing aggressive behavior. We use holds, we put hands on, we use seclusion, we use restraint, very selectively, but we are able to do those kind of things. We're not going anywhere near that with y'all today. It's not appropriate for the setting. But 3/4 of our training, a very small piece is on how you hold people and how you put people. The huge part of the training is verbal de-escalation, because nobody wants it to get to that point. And if we use verbal de-escalation successfully, then probably 90% of the time we can pull somebody down to where you don't have to put hands on. Or in your case, so you wouldn't have to call campus security or the police. So hopefully you'll be able to pull them down. So I'm going to share with you some intervention skills with verbal de-escalation. Obviously, and related to what we've been talking about, the earlier you intervene, the better, right? If you are sensing something's brewing, intervene as soon as you can, because it only gets worse. What are some things that you might look for in a student that would indicate there's a problem? Their body language, show me. You said that? Stiff, clenched fist, excellent. What else?
In your face.
Raising the voice. Pacing, excellent. Anything else?
The eye roll.
Eye roll. Who's in charge? Kind of the verbal stuff.
The one that came to tech services, his hands were yeah, lots of, just absolutely lots of red face, so we weren't sure.
So a lot of body movement. There was actually, motor agitation is one of the big signs that somebody's getting ready to blow. And that could be pacing, it could be moving your body. A lot of times it's rocking, it could be the clenched fist. That increase in body and motor agitation is an indication that somebody's getting a whole lot of stimulation in their brain and in their body, and something may need to be different. Okay, good examples. So the earlier you can intervene, the better. Your job would be to prevent further loss of control. So if you're kind of getting in there in the early stages, you want to be calm. Very, very hard, because what happens inside of ourselves when an aggressive incident happens?
We start our adrenaline starts moving.
Okay. Oh God, what are we gonna do? It feels awful, doesn't it? We've all experienced it, that kind of fear. How am I going to handle this? But the most important thing that we can do as a professional person is to stay calm. Is your voice doesn't get raised, it doesn't quiver, you stay even keel. Not sounding shocked. I had an employee many years ago who had this horrible habit, and finally had to let her go. She couldn't get it together. But when she would talk with people, she would go, what would that make you feel like? She was very easily freaked out. So somebody would say something, they would immediately stop talking. Wouldn't you like, oh my gosh, I said something so terrible. They're not upset anymore. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to sound shocked, or if somebody's starting that, you don't want to have this deer in the headlights look where you're scared and you're shocked. What you want to do is act as a role model. You want to temper your own stuff, and you want to get the person to talk, to use their words. Put what's going on with you into words. Help me understand what's happening with you. You want them to use their words so they don't punch things, or they don't hit things, or they don't scream things. So you want to help them do that. One of the ways that, thank you for the bulletin board. I'm going to draw little faces up here because I'm a visual person, and you can't make fun of my little bodies, my little heads. Oh gosh, he has no chin. I'm sorry, buddy. Okay, this one will give it a chin. Okay, these are two people who are going to communicate. And one of the things that I believe very strongly in, that's going to be distracting for you. Something is going to be anymore. That's not any better. Well, we're going to communicate. I did not major in art. If you have two people communicating, one of the most important things that we're going to talk about has to do with communication. Because a lot of what we've been dealing with this morning already is connecting, right? Communicating and connecting. Where does communication begin?
With the eyes.
With the eyes, good answer, but before the eyes, before the smile.
The brain.
Yay! Communication begins in the brain. With what? What happens in the brain? Thought, good. We have a thought, a feeling, or an idea. And this could be anything from something having to do with school, or something having to do with home, or something having to do with my frustration level, but something's going on in my brain. What I have to do is to somehow communicate that to another person. Can you see my thoughts, feelings, or ideas? No. So what I have to do is called encoding. And what that means is I'm putting that thought, feeling, or idea into something that you can see, hear, experience. Give me an example. smiling at somebody. I'm having a pleasant thought about, gosh, that's really nice of you to do that. And I'm smiling at it. That says, wow, that's really cool. Excellent. So any kind of situation we can encode. It can be a tear if we're sad and we cry. I'm encoding, I'm putting that into a way that you can see my sadness. It could be pounding the desk. It could be raising my voice. Anything having to do, Joanne said, with your eyes. What else? Your voice. All the nonverbal stuff. Your body language, everything, right? Could be words. I'm at you. Eyebrows. Anybody do the eyebrow? So you encode it, all right? People aren't very good at this, encoding. Sometimes we encode lots of things in anger. If think about an abused kid or somebody who's beat up regularly or bullied coming in being real angry. Well, they're feeling sad, scared, hurt, but they're encoding anger. So we're not real good. People aren't real good about encoding. What's your job?
To decode.
Yay! You guys are too smart. You must be college people or something. Your job is to decode. Your job is to figure it out. And this is however you're communicating with someone. Your job is to figure out what's going on. Is your job to figure out what this is or to figure out what this is? What's in your head, right? And we do that by what's called feedback. Everybody knows about feedback. And basically all I'm suggesting is feedback is guessing. Wow, it sounds like you're frustrated. I wonder if you've had a rough morning. This has been really tough for you standing in line for an hour. You know what I'm saying? You're guessing. And if you're right, if you're wrong, what's going to happen? If you guess wrong. They're going to tell you. Yeah. And it's no big deal. No, that's not how I'm feeling at all. They're going to tell you. If you're right, what happens? They will warm right up to you. You have connected with something that they feel heard. We work with, as Cynthia told you earlier, with the residential program. These kids are with us long term. And this happens a lot. But one of the particular incidents really stands out for me. We had an 8 or 9-year-old little boy who's, the courts were trying to work with the mother to regain custody. He was in custody of social services. Very significantly, a behavior disordered kid. And he had worked his program until it was time for mom to visit. And mom came to visit and she was drunk. She had to be escorted off her property. And that whole kind of thing happened. Well, the kid went back to the unit, and this total display of kicking and biting and cursing at the staff. You know, they're seeing this, oh my gosh, he's taking such a turn. He's, something hard, his behavior and missing the boat totally. And all it took was a therapist sitting with him, doing the body language stuff we talked about earlier, and saying, oh my gosh, how sad for you that your mom came drunk. The kid stopped, he cried, and he was connected. And that works with everybody. It works with coworkers, it works with students. If you connect with somebody on that level, if you know somebody's having a hard time, and you can connect with them on that emotional level, you've diffused everything. Another example of the seeing past the behavior and connecting with the emotion was I had in graduate school, and I had this wonderful professor. It was a direct practice class, and it was a summer class, and it was in advanced courses, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. It was awful. And she asked me before class, when I came into class, if I would be angry. I want you to be angrier than you've ever been before. Don't hold back. Let it out. Be as angry as you can be in my classroom, and don't tell any of your classmates. That's all I want you to do. That's your assignment. So I did. And I really got into it because it was a very hard program. So I came in and I threw my stuff down. And I hate this effing college. And, I got into it. I really got into it. And so, of course, my classmates were like, shut up, Ann, sit down. Stop. What are you doing? This woman taught me more in that exercise than I've learned anywhere else because she took my anger and diffused it right down.
by saying things like, wow, what a tough program you're in. This is hard. This is really hard. You've been working all this time and feel like you're just spinning your wheels. Gosh, feels like nobody's there for you. Everything I said, and I'm serious, I was really into it, and I was real angry and real hostile. But every time she made comments like that, it brought me down a notch. Because it was like, yeah. Yeah, what else do I say? I've said all these things that I want to say. Gosh, you could really use some extra support in your life right now. This is hard. And very valuable lesson in diffusing anger, and I have used that 10 million times in my career, and I've watched other people use it in all different settings. Because if somebody comes in and is at wherever you're working in the college, and they're there doing this display, if you can look past their behavior and make a comment about what you think is happening with them, golly, you've been waiting in line a long time. This must be a tough day for you. God, it's 100 degrees outside. You've been standing in the heat and having to wait on me too. You mean this is the 5th office you've been sent to? My gosh, how frustrating. You see how that could kind of redirect somebody's anger? Very powerful, powerful tool. So put it in your toolbox if it will work for you. Couple more things. Stance and approach. Again, we're just kind of going through this outline. Stance and approach. If you are dealing with somebody who's pretty aggressive or raising their voice, you want to give them a statement. Give them, I need for you to settle down. I need for you to stop. Whatever your statement is. And you repeat that. You just keep repeating it until the person follows your directive. You repeat it by taking a step toward the student. Okay, and I'll explain the reasoning behind that. You lower your voice, take a step toward. If you take a step toward somebody who's angry and you raise your voice, what have you done? You've escalated. Your job in de-escalating aggression or anger, and what we're talking about today, is to de-escalate it. You take a step forward and said, I told you need to stop. Then they're going to raise their voice. It's a escalating process. If you lower your voice and step away, I need you to stop. And how do I appear? I need you to stop. Scared. That's not a good thing, because you're in control, right? This is your vocal voice. So you want to repeat what you're saying, lower your voice, take a step toward the person. I need for you to stop. I really need for you to stop. It's time for you to stop. And you calm them down. I've done that with kids with chairs over their heads. I've done it with angry people who've been at the end of their rope with aggression. Hopefully we'll never experience anything like that in your setting. But it really does, it is calming. Because you're presenting yourself as somebody who's in charge of the situation, but without escalating. Okay? We've got eye contact, we've talked about that. It can be very powerful if you get on a person's eye level, if you're able to, you're talking to a student or somebody who's sitting in the library or at a desk, you get on their eye level. It's much more impactful than standing over someone if you're doing some of these techniques. Okay? Now I can't get off. Okay, that's getting harder to do. Yes, another question.
Suppose the student's already in your face and you're, asking them to leave or whatever. You can't take a step toward them.
If they're already in your face, get out. If they are in your face, I've told you to leave. You're not respecting that. I'm going to leave now. Yeah, once they're in your face, you're done. There's no more attempts. I'm out of here. Good question. We'll get a little more into that when we do the levels. There's some levels you just don't want to mess with. If that kid was up on me with a chair, I'm running. They're talking to you. But if I'm coming across the room and trying to get them to calm down, I'm only going to get to a certain point. I'm out of here. Once they're coming at you, get out of here. That helps. We'll talk a little bit more about that.
Touch. Dean's gone. Just kidding. Well, you guys have policy not to touch things, so I'm not going to violate that. But I will give you 2 techniques that perhaps you can use in your own personal lives or in other settings that are very powerful uses of touch. One is called the Orienting Response, and it's getting someone's attention. And God wired us in such a way that there's a part of our body, if somebody touches it, we look them in the eye. Okay?
But that's when I would look you at.
That's when you're touching my face. Shoulder. Between your elbow and your shoulder. It's called the Orienting Response. And who knows, neurologically, we're wired in such a way that if somebody touches us there, we look them in the eye, even if they're not looking at us. If somebody touches you on the foot, where are you going to look? At your foot, right? Anywhere else you touch, you're going to look at the point of the touch, except for here. It's very those of you who are on the faculty here, it's an incredibly powerful classroom tool. Because if somebody in your class, we talked with the dean about cell phones or about different distractions or things in the classroom that people are not paying attention to you, and if you stop and you call them on it, you need to pay attention. Then what is everybody doing? In the class. Everybody's looking at that student, right? They're getting tons of negative attention that just feeds that type of behavior. But if you can continue teaching and continue talking, and yes, we're going to keep working on that, and we're turning to page 30 now, we're going to be reviewing this material next, you never lose your students, but that student will look you in the eye. Okay? Very powerful. The other use of touch I want to share with you has to do with the shoulder blades. If you rub somebody on the shoulder blade of their dominant side, which is the hand they write with, it lowers their blood pressure. What do you do when you go with a friend or a family member to a funeral? What do you do? Constant, don't we? I can't tell you how many times I sat on somebody's bed in the hospital and just sat with it. It calms us. There's a reason we do that, believe it or not. It calms us. So if you have somebody who's upset or crying or sad or distraught, sometimes you don't need words at all. You can just use touch to help calm them down. It's very connecting, but don't do it here. Trouble. Back to the orienting response for just a minute. We talked about the orienting response here. I neglected to mention you never want to grab somebody. What happens if you grab somebody there? Right? It's while it's very sensitive how we're wired to connect with people, it's very sensitive. And where do we go? When we want somebody to move, that's where we grab. And it's not a good thing. So you don't want to grab my ear. I didn't say actually. I'm done. We talked about not trivializing or awfulizing a little bit when sounding shocked. I don't know about y'all, but we got bills to pay, mortgages to pay, kids acting out, marital problems, everything. We got my yard to clean up, we got laundry to do. I got all these huge problems, and then I'm sitting there because this stupid little young student is whining because he didn't get the teacher yet. And if we see things that way, we don't have a lot of patience, do we? You don't know what problems are. I can't pay my mortgage. We don't want to trivialize because those things are just as important in their mind at that time that our stuff is. So we don't want to minimize. Oh, it'll be all right. You're just making a big deal out of nothing. That's trivializing their feelings, and that tends to lead to aggression. Awfulizing is what that employee did. It's terrible. How can that happen to you? It's awful. I've never heard of anything so bad. You do that, they're not going to connect with you either. So, not trivializing or awfulizing. Removing from the situation if it's too aggressive. You want the person out, you get out of there. If need be. When we talked to the dean again, planning this training, we talked about if you're in a classroom situation, dismiss your class, get out. If it's to that point where you feel threatened, dismiss the class and leave. So removing from the situation may sometimes be what you need to do. This will probably not be as important to y'all. Accessible items, for example, if Sandy was starting to get real irate, I would probably just discreetly move that away. I'd probably just move a chair out of the way. Okay, it's okay. It's okay. When we do that a lot, we move stuff out of the way, but you just need to be attuned to things that can be weapons. Yeah, I don't want you being scared, because being scared is not the way to handle aggressive people. But I want you to be tuned in if there are things in the general area that can be hurtful. Talk a little bit about not confronting with control. I believe that it's real important to process with people afterwards. If somebody comes in and really blows up at you, or has a difficult time, the kid was in your face, and then your student, and then at some point later to say, hey, what was up? What was happening with that? No, that was kind of yucky. I don't like us getting along like that. What's going on? And just listen. You don't want to use that time to lecture, because then you've just turned them off. But just to make some kind of connection so you don't establish a pattern of that type of interaction. Okay? Lastly, we're going to go over the intervention based on the level. So if y'all can go back to your paper and recall your people you thought about. I won't ask you to identify. Here they are. Or if they're in the room. Everybody got their whiner and their complainer in mind? What do you think? What's your strategy? What do you do? What do you do with the whiner and the complainer? Just ignore them. Whiny babies don't get a lot of attention from me. I don't have a lot of tolerance for them. A lot of times you just ignore them. Whining and complaining people are generally pretty unhappy folks. And the person you're thinking of, are they aggressive people? Whiners and complainers are usually just pretty unhappy. And don't have the potential. I shouldn't say they don't have the potential, everybody has the potential, but they don't typically exhibit aggression that you have to be concerned about. So if you're talking about the whiner complainer, a lot of times you want to ignore. You may have to enforce a consequence. I'm sorry, but that is what you're going to have to do in my class. And I'm not happy about it, but I'm really sorry about that. You have to enforce the consequence, but you don't have to get bought into that whiny stuff. A lot of times I use humor. And being blonde, I can do that. I can play real stupid. What, huh? What are you talking about? Or just make a joke. Yeah. Life's hard, I know. Oh, come on, we can do this. Just using humor or joking or that kind of stuff for the whiner complainer. You don't really have to risk getting into further difficulty because that's where they are. That's probably where they're going to stay. Think about the person you thought of, and if you did that with them, would it make you feel all right?
Could I just
Yes.
put a little editorial remarking about the use of humor, because I think that can be very tricky, and you've got to know with whom you're dealing, because the senses of humor are very individual, and sometimes it doesn't come across the right way.
It's across smart.
It's sarcastic or condescending.
Good, excellent point. Are you thinking about an incident?
Mm-hmm.
You want to share?
Well, it's just how to protect the identity. We used to have a staff member who had a very, I guess, sarcastic sense of humor, and it didn't work with the students. They felt condescended to, put down, not respected.
Excellent. I'm glad you said that. Because humor, you do have to be selective. Not only do people have different senses of humor, people have different tolerance for that. And in different settings. I mean, there may be some things that you could say that people would accept, and if I said them, it'd be like, who are you? Why are you talking about? I use it a lot, but I forget that I'm with people on a long term too, so they know. Good point. We don't want to be power struggling with the whiner complainer. It's not worth it. We just kind of either ignore them or enforce the consequence. Think about your stubborn refusal person. You got your person? What do you want to do with that person?
Put it in a box.
Lindsay, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that.
I don't work with the person directly,
So you avoid.
Yeah, because she's like a complainer too. It's all over the office.
Yeah, it could. It
Instead of
could.
complainers.
Stubborn refusal is almost like that playing tag too. You don't want to play that. You don't want to go there. You want to just repeat what your rule is. And this is, I'm sorry, this is what's expected. You don't have to do it, but I guess you don't have to be in this class either. Or you don't have to do this, but I guess you don't have to be registered either. It's what you got to do. You kind of repeat it, but you don't go power struggle. My way or the highway is not what you want to do with somebody who's a stubborn refuser. You don't want to go to the power struggle.
The number one for the staff is not our way, and that's one of the things I try to get over to the students, that I am here to provide the best service I possibly can, but I can only work within the constraints of what the college tells me I can do. So yes, I am the mouthpiece, but I have not set the standards. So I try to get them to understand that, and that if you want to change, then maybe through student activities, that's how you get policy change.
Right.
But I am not the person that makes those bucks to make those changes.
Right.
I'm enforcing the standards that I've been trying to do.
Right.
That helps when they realize that I'm not trying to be mean or mean to them or giving something, not giving something that they want, because that's just my way.
Right.
That seems to, I've been here 3 weeks, and that seems to really help. I don't know how it's going to be on the long term, but so far it's worked out for me real well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you've learned a way to not make it personal.
Right. I let them know that I'm interested in their own particular situation the best as I can. Because I get a lot of students. I get
Where was your?
I work in a counseling center.
Okay.
So we get everyone, all the new students come to us after the admissions phase get finished. So I let them know I'm interested, but at the same time, I don't set policy. This is how it is here. So
Yeah, we've
I
all
make the
got
best of it.
Yeah, we've all got to deal with those same parameters.
Yeah. It's interesting.
That's good. That's a good way to frame it. Excellent. Any other ideas about your stubborn refusal person? Sorry, that's the way it is. The rule, that's what we have to follow. Repeating yourself. I'm a big repeater. You don't have to lecture. Just repeat short, little. Sorry, this is our process here. Sorry. Our process here. You don't have to go on to dissertations or lectures because people tune you out. All right, we're going to up the ante a little bit to our verbal abuse person. You've had somebody in mind. Students. Okay, swearing, calling names, angry.
And we try to still calm them down. If they don't, we'll call chief.
This is where chief comes
Yeah.
in, huh? Okay. What do you do to try to calm them down based on what you've learned today?
Listen, smile. Our thing is the smile and calm down. And then we'll be able to tell them, we're just here to help you. We're trying to help you here. Calm down.
Right. Right. Now, verbal abuse, we're going to put on a continuum because I don't want, once it gets to that time when you call the chief or when that person's in your face, we're leading down toward the end to where the other two levels are. So I don't want to confuse that because you don't want to be coming on to somebody who is past the point of cursing and fussing. Okay?
They walk in and
Right.
They might have come from the office, they're irate at this point. When they come in, it's upset.
Right.
They don't even know what the situation is because they're already upset.
They're already upset. And I will tell you what I use more than anything with verbally abusive people is this. And there's a couple of statements I'll share with you. Tell me what's wrong. And the other one is help me understand. Those are the two things that are I think, critical in your toolbox. And I will say that to patients all the time, or residents who are just ballistic with the verbal stuff flying. Wait, I can't understand you. All your emotional stuff's getting in the way. I want to hear what you have to say. I can't hear it. The feeling stuff's.
But like you said too, if they already have personal counseling, we have one student, he came in, I'm saying, senior citizen, he came in spitting in her face, talking to her.
My!
And he was just so upset. And it took two of us to finally calm him down. We didn't have to coach him for anything. And at the end, he ended up apologizing to her for his.
What did you do? What
We
did you
just
do?
said, we're trying to understand you, but then you also have to understand us. This is, like she said, this is the policy, and you know, we're really trying to understand. And then at the end, when he finally apologized to her, he went on about his daughter. He was upset with her and her husband, and
He was bringing all that in, right in your lap.
And so then that's when we thought this person really has some outside problems, and he was just dumping it all on us. But then I guess when we didn't react the way I guess he thought in that confrontative way, he was calm and he apologized.
So very effective use of de-escalation.
The two of us.
Yeah, and sometimes it will. Sometimes you do need to get home. And sometimes you need to get chief involved because it goes to the other. So,
We
excellent
try to
example.
always use that approach, though. I mean, we kind of help each other to help the student, and then if all fails, then that's when we get the chief involved.
And usually if they're coming in mad, or they're mad about something else, or they're coming to you because they're mad about a teacher, or if those kind of things, usually they want to be heard. That's why they're spewing all that stuff. They want somebody to listen to them. So if you say, tell me, I'm here I want to hear you. Help me understand. Tell me about it. It's very, very powerful with the verbal abusive person. And once they start coming across the table at you, screaming in your face, get some help. Okay. You also don't want the verbally abusive person, you don't want to give them an audience. If they're doing that in your classroom, or if they're doing that in a public area, you need to leave. You don't want to give them an audience, because that's a lot of the reason people do all this stuff is for show and attention and that kind of stuff.
It's just a little bit difficult when you're the only person there. We're in a public setting in the library, standing behind the desk, and if you leave.
No, I mean, if you tell the student to leave.
Oh, tell students, leave.
Think about your situation. Would that have worked for you? You need to leave now. Right. So it was on a different. Okay. Did y'all hear the incident in the library that they were trying to tell the person to stop or leave wasn't being heard? It was way past that. So those are the times that you want to get the help.
Yes. Yeah, I have a question about in the classroom, so don't give them an audience. If this occurs in the classroom, you know, you've got the whole class of students, how do you handle the situation? Are you talking to them in front of everybody, or do you get them to go out quietly, go out in the hall, or do you do?
I will tell you what I've done, and I don't pretend to have all the answers, I just know what works for me, is I would say, I need for you to leave now. I need for you to leave the classroom and talk about this. You're taken away from my class. I need you to leave now. And I would be very firm and I would be very clear. That works for me.
And then if they don't, this is when you have to.
Well, and that's what we talked about with the chief and Dean Davis the other day. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. Did he say to dismiss the class?
That's what I said.
Okay, that's what you said, dismiss the class. And again, what I would say is, I'm really sorry that Sandy's disrupting our class today. I'm really sorry, but obviously we can't continue. Class dismissed.
You don't have to finish your course.
You gotta finish your what?
You don't have to finish your course material.
Yeah, because everybody knows how to get out of class.
Dismiss the class.
And you don't. And you gotta be very selective. You gotta be very selective about using those techniques. Because you're right, if somebody's sitting in your class and being disrespectful by talking on the phone, or by, you know, fumbling in their stuff or chewing gum or whatever they're doing, you don't dismiss the class. Those are behaviors that you deal with the student one-on-one. But what I think is destructive when somebody's being verbally abusive is to engage in that because it feeds it. You know, I don't know why you're even coming to this class. All you do is sit there and complain, and you know, you're taking all this stuff away from everybody, and I think that feeds it because you're giving the person an audience. My recommendation, what I use is, you need to leave. I'll talk about this with you later. You need to get out of my classroom now. And if they don't go, you dismiss the class.
Excuse yourself and go on campus.
Well, I think the suggestion was that they didn't want the adult to leave the classroom with somebody that out of control. Am I right, Chief?
What about getting a student to say, could you get campus police here? You know, just have, can somebody leave the room and get the police? I mean, would that?
I mean, that's up to your college policy. That's up to your college policy. In my opinion, that gives a kid too much of an audience.
Yeah.
Because boy, we're getting everybody involved now. Boy, if you just turn this into a big showcase for you. I tend to keep it more, get out. Or not.
Right, I understand what you're saying. I think of myself as a student also, which I was not too long ago. And I feel pretty cheated if a student was taking my valuable class content I paid $100 for away from me. And if I knew that the teacher was ready to dismiss a class, you know, every time somebody got disruptive, as the student not making this, you know, causing the problem, I would want to start talking to the dean, because why do I have to put up with this activity? So I just wonder, you know, if there's a way to
And I think,
handle it.
again, I want to make sure we're
But I
clear.
understand what you're saying.
Not every time somebody's disruptive,
Right.
we would never have a class
Right.
anywhere. And we do group therapy with the most troubled people on the planet.
Right.
If we dismiss group every time somebody got disruptive, we'd never have group.
Right.
But what we do is say, you need to leave. You're being disrespectful, and you need to leave. And then, to address the issue you're bringing up, in order for that person to come back, and I don't know if you can do that, is you say, you know, you've taken our time.
Right.
You've taken our learning experience, and you need to address it with your classmates before you come back to class. Because that person needs to be held accountable for the loss of everybody in the class. But again, very, very selectively. You have to be ready to handle disruptions, lots of them, before it gets to the in-your-face kind of, okay, it's over the library situation. It's past what I can handle. It's past what I'm safe for. Does that fit, Chief, what we kind of...
Yes. The thing to remember is that when you have a situation that escalates to that point, yes, the best thing to do is to dismiss the class. And there's a reason for that. Because you don't know what that person may have.
That's right.
I'd rather have everybody out of the classroom than have 20 people held hostage.
Okay.
Because if the instructor sends someone to call campus police, and that person who is out of control secures the door, then we've got more of an issue.
Okay.
So I understand so far as losing class time, but at the same time, let's err on the side of safety.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay, does that help?
Makes a lot of sense, yeah, thank you.
So we got the verbal abuse person. Threats of violence. What do? We're now past verbal abuse.
See ya.
Yes, okay, any question here? Get out. This is a dismiss your class, get out thing. And so are acts of violence. If you have somebody get up in your classroom and punch a hole in your wall in the middle of class or in the library or whatever, get out. It's called exit and wait.
So do you mean run out and the students are still sitting?
No, you take it with you. All right, guys, we're out of here. Class dismissed one. And you call chief, right?
Yes.
Okay, so threats of violence, and again, I'm not talking about somebody mumbling, all right, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about direct threats or acts of violence. You get out. Okay? How did those techniques fit with the people you were thinking about?
I have a question, and it might go back up the levels a little bit. If you had a student in the class and they just, you know, the whole semester, I'm sure that there's something I probably could have done before I kept letting it go on, but at the time I didn't know how to handle it. What would you do? do.
Like the
because-
sigh?
Yeah, just, like you said, fumbling in the, book bag, just doing stuff, and it's not, at a level of 3, but it was
Disruptive.
It was disruptive.
I would address it with the student individually
After
or after class.
Okay.
And I would use these techniques. One of the things, and I've heard, y'all have heard about I statements before. I statements are real powerful in dealing with behaviors on a one-to-one basis. I'm feeling real frustrated with your behavior in my class, the sighing and the kind of distraction. And I'm wondering if something's bothering you that we could talk about, but I really need for you to stop. It's just not, it's too disruptive for me. I would do it one-to-one very calmly. I didn't want to embarrass you in front of the class or calling guys' attention to it. It's real distracting for me as your teacher. So I'm going to ask you not to do that. But I would never confront that in an open classroom, because either the person's going to get angry, embarrassed, or maybe something really is going on that you've kind of missed in the opportunity for them to connect with somebody. Any other questions or comments?
I had a situation, I wasn't sure if I handled it right, but the student came in and it agitated him. I mean, before he said anything, you could tell, and I was helping another student, and I just go about my business the same way for anyone. I try to be with you in the moment, because I give everybody in my life everybody's attention. And he was pacing, and I kept watching him in the corner of my eye, but the other student that I was helping kept, turning around. And we could all sense that something was going on, and I didn't really know whether he was angry or what, but I didn't want to address it right then, because I want to be business as usual. So my question is, if I sense that somebody is agitated, I'm helping other students. I mean, it's always first come, first served, just like this in the admissions office. Should I take the time to give that person special treatment and see to their needs first? Or should I just act, kind of my day as normal and you have to wait like everybody else, even though I don't know what the problem is?
I would share with you what I would do. I tend to address the crisis first and get it settled. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop and register the student or meet all the student's needs.
Right.
But I would get it under control first. Because if that happens, as you would imagine, a lot in our setting, you're dealing with something and then somebody's doing something over here, I tend to say, I'm really, really sorry. Can you wait just a minute and run over there and say, gosh, you're really upset about something. Are you okay? And if they say no, yes, whatever, gosh, I'm going to get to you in just a minute. But can I get you over here? Would you like something to drink? And just try to get your feelings under control while I'm finishing up with this other student. I would address it and contain it. Because some people, if they don't feel contained, may up the ante on you.
Right, and that's what I was concerned about, whether he was going to, he's having to wait, he's waiting longer, he's pacing more, and you can tell he's really getting steamed, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I was in there by myself at the time.
And that's scary.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but it turned out okay, but I just wondered if I handled it right.
Yeah, and I think that's true in a lot of your other settings with registration too. You're going to see people kind of starting to wig out. If you can just get them contained.
Okay.
And then go back to what you're doing. It doesn't mean you leave everybody else off and take that person first, or else everybody's going to do that. Well, I know how to get in first to the counseling department. I know what to do.
Right.
You've learned that. Okay, good. The last thing on our list is power struggles. I just want to talk briefly about power struggles. It's kind of been intermingled in everything else we've talked about. When setting a limit, particularly when you're dealing with adults, you're not dealing with little kids, it's my way or the highway, I said so. You're dealing with other adults. It's important to give options and not butt heads. I keep going back to cell phones. That was an issue that came up. Cell phone in the classroom. I don't allow cell phones in my classroom. You either need to turn it off or leave. It's an option. It's not, you turn it off, or I said so, and you're in my class. It's you're giving the option. And when you give an option, it's not a power struggle. I need for you to either calm down and be appropriate in this group, or you're going to have to step outside. I need for you to treat the library materials with respect, or you're not going to be in the library. I mean, it's your choice. But You see how that kind of takes all the button heads out of it? It's really your choice. It's how we treat other adults, because if we come across like I'm in charge all the time, then it doesn't always work. Tone of voice, we've talked a ton about that. Just being respectful and treating people with dignity, not raising your voice. Lastly, if you find yourself engaging in a power struggle, hand off to one of your coworkers. It's not always possible, but hand off to a coworker, because you may have gotten to the point where you can no longer be effective with that student. That's okay. We all have that. In counseling school, it's called Transference and Countertransference. It means we start relating with people as personal relationships rather than professional. And it's not helpful. But we all experience it. So when you recognize it, you may need to hand off to a coworker. If you're in an office or an area of the college or a classroom where there's another adult, another professor or another teacher, know each other enough to say, hey, they're in trouble. Help each other out. Oh, Joanne, I got this. I'll take care of this one. Would you mind getting me a soda? You know what I'm saying? If I'm watching Joanne's interaction, I can tell she's in. she's baited into that thing, and it ain't going anywhere. Step in for it. I got this. Would you mind getting me a drink? You know, something to help her out and give her a way out without being condescending or embarrassing.
I just thought of a situation that happened in one of our other labs in learning resources, and the staff person wouldn't disengage because they felt they had to prove they were right. And I said, no! You do not have to prove you are right.
That's a power struggle. That's a definition of a power struggle. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that goes nowhere. Absolutely nowhere.
That neither will give up the right to be right. You know, it's lose-lose.
It is, it absolutely is, and then it's set up to button heads and there's no solution. So if you see somebody going there, hopefully we're all mature enough that we can handle our coworkers helping us. But if anybody is to ever do that to you, just be real sensitive to it that they're helping you. And not like, what are you doing? I got this. I'm taking care of it. You don't want to get defensive about it either.
That we had in the library, it started with the work study, and then it passed on to another staff member. And after that, one of the pages that we had stepped forward, and he pulled the situation away from the others that had started with, and after that we called campus police. But it's a situation where he wasn't totally angry, he's a usual customer, and we knew it wasn't his normal behavior.
You knew something was wrong.
Yes, we knew something was wrong. So it went from person to person, and he took it, listened, and then we started back up. So that's when we decided to call campus police, and they came back.
So that's an excellent example of y'all using each other. One of you is not, yeah, and that's good.
This one, the students who stepped in, actually said that the students who came because they had such physical threat, not from being said. So it was came closer to us, and one of them were able to kind of hold the relations and that person was angry. And more or less focusing on himself. And it's often started.
Contain it. Good. Containment's a good thing, because that's when it gets really scary, is when you come out. And we do several examples of being able to contain something. That's excellent. It sounds like you guys handled it real well.
Well, actually, this procedure that then was very helpful to us. And then once we saw that that was working, we were going from there, but we went and
Sounds like you handled it well. It must have been scary for you.
well, that's one thing that is, as long as
And you do part of all this planning for this conference. You have those resources. And certainly, he doesn't want to be called on every time somebody's popping their gum in the library or in the classroom. But certainly, if you need that, you've got a real strong security procedures. You need that. But I hope that some of the techniques we talked about will be beneficial to you. Cynthia and I talked about doing a couple scenarios or role plays. Are you all up for that?
And,
Oh, we got some questions. Hold on.
go ahead, give your question. I was just going to wonder if we could take a break at some point. I'd have some drinks and cookies and...
Okay. Want to ask your question? We'll take a break.
I just have a question that goes back to the levels. This is before level 3, the more minor disruption. You always hear people say in every talk like this that you should speak to the people individually outside class. But what do you do in the case of which frequent minor disturbances, and I do not want to let it persist for 50 minutes or 2 hours or however long the class is. It's good to just like people talking in the back or doing something that's inappropriate. There has to be some way to handle it immediately without having an individual conference with the people. If you do it in a very low-key way, is there a way to do that?
I was going to suggest why don't we role play that at the break?
All right. Good. We'll role play that situation exactly. Okay. Y'all take a break and get some cookies and stuff.
Brian, I'm going to take a 11, right?